You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 247 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by HandsOnGloves.com, the all-in-one revolutionary bathing, grooming gloves. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and today we have a real treat. I get to sit down quietly with Dad after several days of a gentling wild horse course, just to reminisce a little bit about his youth with those horses that he grew up with, training and gentling, and also with a very diverse student body that we have on campus here at the Monty Roberts International Learning Center for the Gentling Wild Horse course. It's our most popular course. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I have my producer, Jen, with me today. Jen, let's talk Mustangs.
Woohoo! Welcome to 2024.
I know. I'm so excited about 2024. I really am. I feel like we're really hitting our stride here on California Horse Center at Flag Is Up Farms.
Yay!
And yeah, and we've added some courses and things like that too, which means we get to play with more ponies.
Oh, well, hang on until we get to the calendar part of the show and more courses. I will have questions about that surely.
Okay.
And I have a question about the Gentling Wild Horses course, which Monty talks about today. And it's going to be fun because we'll hear a little bit about the genesis of how this course was developed and why it got started and things like that. But when you do the Gentling Wild Horses course, are they always Mustangs?
No, great question. No, we have bucking horses. They're raised up on a mountaintop, meant for the bucking string, which sounds like brutal, right? Does that kind of sound like rodeo?
Some people might think, ooh, bucking horse, scary. Yeah.
But they're mostly used eventually as ranch horses because very few of them cut the mustard, as they say, as bucking horses. But they're big, beautiful. They've got Percheron and some big, heavy horses bred into them. But they've seen people. They're fed from the back of a truck over the mountaintop. So they don't think of people as enemies or anything like that or something to really be afraid of. But they also are totally untouched, too. There's nothing.
They chuck the bale of the hay out the back. They don't stop to pet anybody on the nose.
No, nobody gets touched out there. No, but they're left with the cougars and the rattlesnakes and everything else too. So they really are like wild horses raised, in the wild. But when they come in, it's not so fractious. So they settle pretty quickly, and then we get working on them. And so that's our favorite horse to have it in the gentling. But we've had other Morgan sanctuaries, a bunch of Morgan horses. We've had Mustangs from all different walks of life. I mean, the Mustangs out of the holding pens. We've had Mustangs that were...
Sometimes you get them off the range and sometimes you get them off the holding pens. Interesting.
Exactly. Well, they've gone through, most of the time, they've gone through the holding pens, but they're like just, they were born in wild, and then they brought them in, and we get to choose from those pens, and so we know that, like Shy Boy. Shy Boy is our most famous Mustang. He's over 30 here now, and he was raised in the wild, captured at 3, and adopted right away out of that holding pen. And they try to do that. The BLM does try to, get people encouraged to take the young ones, which is awful for the old ones. But on the other hand, at least they've got a full life ahead of them when they're when gentled. So anyway, so it's a good question. We've had all kinds. We've even had some from sanctuaries that were untouched because, you got different situations. Somebody bought a horse and put it in the backyard and decided that's where it's going to stay. And, they were never gentled. They were started. They didn't know how, whatever it was. The particular ones that are so beautiful this week were basically rescues, in that there was a helicopter roundup and they were taken by the BLM, but this person that owns them was there, witness to the helicopter. And so she said, this is horrible, even though I'm living in the middle of LA and I have no business, trying to house a horse. I'm going to rescue them and figure out what I can do. And so then they've set out to get them adopted out, which is, not easy, but also we're proud of her for doing that.
Well, and if you're going to do that, and there are many people who do that sort of work with all sorts of different animals, in that she had never intended to own horses, ride horses, be involved with horses. She just recognized an animal in need.
Yeah.
Because Mustangs, when they're brought in off the range, it's a tough haul. Getting those animals adopted into responsible homes is not easy. There are more horses than there are homes. Yeah. So kudos for her for doing that. And then for asking Monty to give them pretty much the best start they could get.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah. And what a fun thing for students to get to witness that. And I think one of the cool things about the Gentling Wild Horse course is that it doesn't matter if you're green as grass because you're kept safe. They're behind gates, behind fences and things. So we can actually rub on them, and then the
protected
people who are
contact. Yes,
exactly, protected contact, and we've got them in helmets anyway. So you really feel protected. And then those people that have a bit of experience, of course, our instructors, our interns that are here, and Monty himself, they get to working with horses to give that the first halter, the first lead on, and you just see them. The glide path is so easy, Jen, and it's fun to see. So you get people who say, I just love horses, always wanted an excuse to get around them. And this is their entry point really into horses a lot of times. Not that they're going to take one of those wild horses home, but this is like, now I understand their nature more. I understand their language.
Because how many times have we come across people who are very much involved with horses? They either own one or lease one or take riding lessons regularly, that you get to know them a little bit and you scratch your head and say, they just don't understand what a horse is. And that's very hard in the 21st century, because a lot of people don't even understand what a dog is, much less a horse. And a dog is a little bit closer to a human being, a predator. Yeah. But understanding that a horse is not just a big dog. Yeah. It's in every way different than a dog, and it's in every way different than a human. And that to get started, your very first experience with a horse, to have that demonstrated and explained, and then in a way that's safe for your particular skill set, to practice that. Again, the horse is getting the best start possible, and so is the human.
Yes. And I think it's true. In fact, Monty was doing a join up, or he was coaching one of the students today through a join up. And it was kind of cute because it's a little quarter horse, simple, not the gentlers. We wanted to get them in a round pen with a simple horse. So let's put it that way. And he's a nice little quarter horse. And so we silently went through. So he wasn't really coaching him through. We'd already done that part. So this was their opportunity, the student's opportunity to do it, to demonstrate the join up on their own kind of thing, right? And at the end of it, she got some bobbles and boops here and there, which happens. But he said, you know what? That was a beautiful join up that the horse did with you. And what he meant was, the horse was leading the
way. Yes.
And the student was trying to figure out what the horse wanted next, which I'd never really seen that. And I certainly hadn't, defined that before the way. But that happens a lot with new students to the language of Equus, because if a horse is pretty domesticated and has seen a join-up or two, then they often are very kind and sort of lead you through it themselves. And, the student will follow along. But I think that's a beautiful thing to experience too, as long as you have a coach there to say, you know what, that's not going to work for you very long. So you have to turn that around.
That's valid though. It's from my point of view, this is an outsider looking in. Mm-hmm. That's the same as someone who needs to learn how to do flying lead changes. Learn to do that on Schoolmaster. Yeah. So you learn it correctly, and then apply that to the horse who's maybe less experienced. It makes perfect sense for students to learn these skills with horses who have experience, so that when they get something close to the right answer, the horse goes, yeah, I think I can anticipate what you're asking. Yeah. And they can then hone those skills on less experienced animals. That makes perfect sense. Sure.
That's a great observation. Absolutely. And I think that's what's fun for the students, to see the raw horse RAW, raw horse, and express that into pressure, express that don't touch me. Okay, it's okay to touch me. Oh, I actually kind of like that touch. To watch that whole arc happen, but then to go play with some. Tomorrow, we're going to go out to the mountain trail. It's going to be really fun with some of the transition horses. Those are off the track thoroughbreds. And we're going to see how their brains work too. But we're going to use a lot of the same concepts from the ground first. And then if somebody wants to ride, we can get them in the saddle. And I think one thing that is a disadvantage to people over, let's say 40 or so, maybe listeners can tell me otherwise, but what I have seen is generally the older the rider, the less they've done on the ground. It wasn't a thing when these
absolutely
guys, right?
Absolutely. Back in the day, in my more formative years, once a horse was backed, you could lay over his back. You could put a foot in each stirrup. You never put him on a long line again, or a lunge line, or
walk them around, or
never. You get on their back.
Right. You wouldn't go through the mountain trail on your feet. No, but we do. And it becomes more of a confidence builder for both of them. And then once you get in the saddle, the horse has already gone through the thing. He knows what you were asking. And you're pretty confident now, too, because that's where you wanted to be in the first place, was up in the saddle and not on the ground. But once you see that you can create a bubble around your horse and then you can incrementally take them through. So anyway, it's going to be fun tomorrow, too. Yeah. And we're going to use a lot of that language that we learned in this very popular Gentling Wild Horse course to do things with your own horse back home. Fun,
and without further ado, let's get into it. And we're going to do that right after we hear from our title sponsor and essential part of this show, Hands On Gloves.
Our title sponsor, Hands On Gloves, who support us and are our reason for being here, actually have a little innovation that you were telling me about with Nigel.
Yes, Nigel. This was inspired. I was watching some of the videos over on the Hands On Gloves YouTube page.
That's cool. Yeah.
And it has great ideas for using your hands on gloves if you ever want to spend a little time on YouTube, and who doesn't want to do that? In the wintertime, Nigel does not get clipped because his hair coat doesn't really get very thick, and he lives out of doors. It's a very light winter coat, and that's a real struggle in the winter because you want to get deep down into the hair when you dry them off, because what can happen is you can get rain rot if the top of the hair dries before the skin does. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we've all used towels to dry our horses off. You swipe back and forth, but that's it. It doesn't get to the skin. It only dries the top.
It does.
So you take the old hands-on gloves, which you've got on anyway, because that's what you were using to scrub your horse.
You washed them with. Yeah, that's right.
Just grab a towel, toss it on your horse, and you dry the horse using your gloved hand, and those little bumples on the gloves get down between the hairs and dry the skin off. It's awesome.
It's awesome. And they love it. I mean, who doesn't like to be snuggled in a blankie?
If you give them a good once over with a towel and your hands-on glove, then when you do throw the cooler over top, you've fluffed up all that hair.
Yes.
So that it can allow the moisture from the skin to come up through. If the hair's mushed down flat, it's going to do its job of keeping things just the way they are. So grab yourself a pair of hands-on gloves from HandsOnGloves.com or your local tack retailer. You can find them everywhere. They come in lots of different sizes and colors.
Yep.
And give it a try for yourself.
Monty Roberts might be best known as the creator of the world-renowned revolutionary equine training technique called Join Up. Monty has traveled the world demonstrating that nonviolent, gentle training creates breakthrough performance as you partner with your horse. Monty grew up on a working horse farm as a first-hand witness to traditional, often violent methods of horse training. And it's called breaking the spirit or breaking the horse, but it's with an abusive hand. Rejecting that, he went on to win 11 World's Championships in the show ring. Today, Monty's goal is to share his message that violence is never the answer. Named top 50 all-time greatest horsemen by Horse and Hound magazine, Monty's mission is to leave the world a better place than he found it for horses and for people too. Well, welcome. Welcome back, Dad. How are you?
Thank you very much. And it's really an exciting, exhilarating effort to bring people who want violence-free training to wild horses and watch the two of them come together and watch the people learn. And we have some nice students right now with good intelligence, and they're watching, they're learning, and somewhere, and they live all around the world, really around the world.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
In Korea, Australia, East Coast of the United States, California. I mean, you just couldn't spread it out any more than it is. So just think about it. If there's a little coil of nonviolent training that they go back to in those places, it's part of making the world a better place for horses and for people too.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's intimate, and it's an opportunity to not only film your work with the wild horses. So we've got a couple of horses that were, I guess, use the word victims of a helicopter roundup. They went into the BLM system, but were immediately adopted by someone who had watched them be captured in a helicopter roundup, which was very kind of somebody to do, and then asked us if we would put some gentle on them. So we're using them for the course, and these students have signed up, and they're taking those concepts into their corners of the world in different ways too.
Yeah, and they could be considered Mustangs. They were out there in the wide open country, untouched, unhaltered, no veterinarians taking care of them or anything. And their mother and son, that's interesting. And they love one another, and particularly the son loves the mother very much,
yes, that's true.
and calls out to her and stuff. So there's a personality to it all that is rare in the courses that we do. We generally don't have related horses, and often we do courses without wild Mustangs. And these were fairly well untouched. And they'd been through some guidance and a bit of touching, but very, very wild horses that might kick your head off if you're not doing the right thing. And they don't mean to hurt anybody. And today I picked up all 4 feet, all 4 legs on the older one of the two, the mare, the mother. That is so rare. To the first day you work with these kind of horses, to pick up all 4 feet is just really rare. But we were able to show her that we meant her no harm, and she was able to accept the fact that maybe they're not lying to me. And we had an instructor here, Courtney Dunn, and Courtney exhibited a join-up with the older one. And that helped me with the picking up of the legs, because this mare began to trust human beings right there with the first join-up. And I did this 4 feet picking up just 20 minutes after she did the join-up exhibition for the students here. So I'm really pleased with how it took place and what happened.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So over the arc of the week, just so people get a lay of the land of what does gentling look like, we started off with, in the classroom, just a little bit of your concepts, your theories, what makes some of the work you've done unique because of your youth and working with the Mustangs for the wild horse races. Can you tell us a little bit about your background when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was right after the war ended, the Second World War ended. The Second World War ended when I was 10 years old. And when I was 9, they knew they were going to get ready for the wild horse race at Salinas, California, the Salinas Rodeo. And the wild horse race was a special event that was very popular in those days, but it was awful. It was really awful. Everything was traditional. I'm 9 years old. It was 44. We're going to have the race in 45. And I went to Nevada with the guys. I'm 9 years old. And I saw Mustangs. Now, I had my horse with me, Brownie, and I rode him, and I watched. A 9-year-old doesn't do much out there with the Mustangs to get them on the trucks and stuff. But I was infatuated with the wild horses and how these guys got them with the wings built. And I invented some things right out there in my mind the first time, so that in 45, when we were gathering for 46, I was doing things that had never been done before out there. For instance, they spent a lot of money building fences that get smaller as you go, so that you build them in a Y shape. And the horses...
Squeezing the horses through.
Yeah, you're just squeezing the horses through, and they wind up in a small pasture that's got good fences. So they just build some, inexpensive fences that just kind of guide them down through there. And you watch their tracks. And you build your fences so that they're used to going there anyway. And then, boom, they find that they're in a very secure corral. And after the first year, I said to my father and to E.J. Leach, who was the president of the Rodeo Association at the time, you don't need to build those fences with that Y. They were half a mile long. They had guys out there working for a month putting these together so that you have a trap for the Mustangs to go into. And they said, yeah, we have to have the fences because we need them to go down and go through this narrow spot, and then boom, they're in the corral. And I said, no, I think that if you simply take crepe paper and put it on the bushes and the trees, tack it to the trees and stuff, they're not going to try crepe paper. They've never seen crepe paper before. And it worked. So then they started building these traps all over Nevada and Idaho and Arizona to trap the Mustangs, because people were saying, after the race is over, they're going to have a sale and they're going to sell them. Well, people weren't buying them for more than $20, $30.
Really?
So the decision at the level of the rodeo people were just send them to the killers. And they were sending all these horses to the killers.
And that's because they were worth more per pound, or?
Well, they weren't worth more per pound, but it was about the same. Oh. And then you didn't have people getting injured and suing you.
Yeah, you didn't want to train them. Yeah.
You didn't have, a lot of problems. They just came with their truck. They bought them for $20, $30 a head. Wow. And they sent you a check, and that was better than starting them. And as time went by, and it got up into the 1947, 1948, 1949, those 3 years, I showed Dr. Leach how I could take the better ones, that is, their conformation, their soundness, their age. I could take the better ones, and I could have a rider on them in no time at all with my system. Oh, my father was very upset with that. What are you trying to pull? What are we going to do when this catches on and then we don't get paid for training horses? Well, I was doing it, and it was catching on. Mm-hmm. There was no question about that. But I say catching on, it was a small group of people. But we then had a sale, and I'm riding them. And Dick Gillot is riding them, a kid that worked for us. And they were bringing $150,
really,
$200, $250. A really good one might bring $300, and it's ready to go ride. Oh, my word. I became the worst criminal you ever heard of, because he's just ruining the professional horsemen of the world. He's just ruining them. We don't know what he does. He's got something he gives them or something like that, and then he just does this stuff. And we don't know what it is, but we don't want to do it anymore. So I quit. In 1949, that was my last, 1950 was my last time to gather the horses. And in 1950, I went out and did a horse in the wild without my father's permission. And I told the crew that was there, don't ever tell my father what I'm doing here, but I'm actually going to join up with a horse in the wild, a Mustang. Well, you can't do that, but it's fine. How many days you figure? I said, 3 days. I'll ride the horse back to the camp. It was a bunkhouse kind of thing. About 20 cowboys worked on that ranch near Tuscarora in northern Nevada. In 3 days, I rode the horse back. And then they said, well, he's really got something. He's got something he gives them.
Oh,
that horse was,
trick.
It was a trick. That horse would just carry, and they told my father about it. And that was the last fight that I had with my father that was physical. I was just defending myself because he came at me to kill me. I mean, he was really angry. And we had an all-out fight. I'm 15 years old, so yeah, I felt like I was an adult. And I was already playing football, tackle football. And I won the fight. And he hated me from that day on without any question. But he didn't see me work after that. But then he began to read about the things I was doing, and it really bothered him a lot. In 1985, he died. In early 85, my mother brought him here to this farm where we are now, which was Flag Is Up Farms, and now it belongs to our firstborn child. Turned over to her 3 or 4 years ago. And I did about 20 horses in one day. Mustangs. About 20. I think there was a mixture of Mustangs and thoroughbreds, but anyway, I did about 20, and they had him in a high chair watching, and I was averaging 28, 29 minutes to have a saddle on him and a rider on him. I had young riders, and we went to dinner here in this house, right within 20 feet of where we're sitting right now. And my mother said, Marvin, that's my father's name, Marvin, what did you think of Monty's work today? It's suicide. They'll kill him if he keeps doing that. And he died later that same year. And I went on, and I have done thousands of horses in 41 countries. 41 countries.
41 on tour, yeah.
On tour for Her Majesty. She was encouraging me to do these on tour. And she said she would pay for everything, but she didn't have to pay because people were buying tickets, and there was no reason for the Queen to have to pay, and I never asked her to. But I did 41 countries. Some of those countries I did 10, 15 demonstrations in. England and the Scandinavian countries and the Western European countries.
10, 15 a year.
10 or 15 demonstrations a year. Mm-hmm. And my largest audience was in Germany in the town of...
Did you say Cologne?
Cologne, Germany. Mm-hmm. And my largest audience was 7,000 people. Mm-hmm. Well, a young man, I mean, I wasn't so young then, but I was
younger,
my 40s, that does 7,000 people in a coliseum there just to do a demonstration of how that's rare, man. Mm-hmm. And later in my career, I went to Brazil and Argentina, some of the South American countries. And I got a phone call from a lady that said she owned 3 or 4 newspapers in Brazil. And if I came back to Brazil, I would be arrested. Because the professionals were coming to her and said, "What's this guy doing?" And he's saying that traditional horsemanship is bad because it's violent. Well, you have to be violent. Horses have to have a boss. You got to know who's boss. They've got to know who's boss. And you have to use force. Everybody knows that. And so she said, if you come back to Brazil, you will be arrested. No matter where you are in Brazil, you'll be arrested. Well, later on, we had a man come from Brazil up here to go through one of my courses, Valdo Franco. And Valdo was a nice young man, a businessman, but his family had a farm and they had horses. And he said, I want you to come to Brazil and show the people this. This is really good. And he got pretty good at it himself. And I said, nope, I'm not going to Brazil. And that's not going to happen because they'll arrest me. No, Monty, they won't arrest you now. The country is changing. They watched you when you were there. And it's 8 years now, and they're most of those tough guys are changing to your way. Well, anyway, the talks went on, and they offered me a fee and took my whole family with me and some friends too. But we went there. And it was in a coliseum in Barretos, Brazil. It was just, 4 or 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. And 32,000 people came to see me there. And nobody arrested me.
Yeah.
And I didn't get injured, but they gave me a really tough horse that bucked like heck with a guy, and they didn't give me a guy that could ride very well.
Well, he was a professional, actually. But...
And he was a bucking horse rider, but anyway, the people loved it. And the fact that the horse bucked was an advantage because the guys were saying, the tough guys were saying to their wives and girlfriends and friends, other men, they just found a horse that's already been broken.
Yeah, we heard that. We heard that directly.
Yeah, we heard it directly. They just found a horse. They've probably been on him before and everything. And then all of a sudden, this horse broke in two. And he was just plain outright wild. Mm-hmm. And they had shown me some horses, and I chose him out of a group of horses, primarily because he was a good-looking horse, very sound, and 16'2", big, strong horse. And boy, oh boy, those people loved it. Mm-hmm. And they want me to come back now, but I don't have the health to go around the world now at 88 years of age and coming up on 89 years of age. I just don't have the health anymore to travel. But these videos travel, these tapes travel, and it's happening. It's really happening. The world is changing, and violence is not the answer. Horses do better without violence than they ever did with violence. And certainly 52% by scientific study, 52% of the horses in Brazil were dying in the breaking process. A scientific study. And they haven't, so far as we know, they haven't killed a horse with my methods in the last 10 years or so.
Right. So there is a gentleman, Keon by name, who is from Korea, as you had mentioned before in this gentling class. It's actually his second class. He came for the intro course earlier in the year. And he wants you desperately to go to Korea because he said he came in March of 2023 and said that you were beginning talks about Brazil, and it was a potential August trip that year, so March to August, and you were thinking and he was thinking, probably not possible, probably not going to happen. I mean, it's a great dream and thought, yeah. And you were getting, plans like, well, maybe I start doing push-ups and getting in shape and everything. Yeah, but he comes back here for this week, happened to get a plane ride to Los Angeles for work, didn't really plan it, and he said, I'm coming for the Gentling Wild Horse course, and I'm going to come see Monty because I want to learn more from him. But he said to me today, when I got here, this is not Monty. This is not the Monty I knew in March. This guy is full of energy. He talked about Brazil. I saw the video in Brazil. What did you do with the Monty I met in March?
Wow. Well, this condition that I have is called CIDP. You don't want to know what it is, but it's horrible. And it destroys your neurological system all through your body. So it's a very tough thing. But they have me on infusion of gamma globulin 2 days every 2 weeks, so 4 times a month. I go in, it's 3 hours of draining this stuff into my blood. And yeah, you look in the mirror and you say, am I getting better? Or, yeah, I want to go do something. And I can't do that much. And today I worked hard for a short time.
What'd you do today?
Well, today I did a join up, and I did some work with the students. And
with the Mustang?
With the Mustangs, yeah.
And what'd you do yesterday with them?
Yeah, I did the same thing yesterday. And so that's good. But toward the end today, boy, I was having a hard time even just sitting up straight. So
energy is limited.
I mean, we all die. And at 88, I've passed that period in time when most people are gone.
But they say once you get past a certain age, you can actually glide a bit. But I think what he was pointing out is that when you have a passion and when you have a focus and when you can control your physiology as well as you do, your breathing, your heart rate, and you can be around. He said that he watched you work with the mare today and you were focused on the mare. But the boy, the little child of hers, was trying to climb out of the chute behind. Not with a lot of effort, but he was not happy being in there without his mom. His mom was completely happy, by the way, of him being locked in the chute. She was kind of over him. But this student of yours said, wow, I kept focusing back on the horse in the chute instead of focusing on you. And I kept telling myself, focus on Monty and the mare. And he said, how ridiculous is this that Monty probably had eyes behind his head and knew that the horse was safe and fine, but was totally focused on the mare enough to pick up all 4 of her feet without a lead on, by the way. Remember, you took the lead off and began to pick up the feet. So that focus must be healthy for people. That passion, that desire, the action, the activity.
It's interesting to hear you say this, and you sort of characterize it as the student saying, my word, when I was here before, he didn't have that kind of enthusiasm and that excitement, that build up. I didn't do that today. I didn't do that. The horses did that. I couldn't. My deer, I love my deer, but when I get up here and I try to be really quiet with the flight animal, 10 times flightier than the horse, the wild deer, I can go really calm, but I can't even walk. I can't breathe. I can't relax myself. I can't think straight. But I get around horses that are trying me, and that are wild. And up it comes. I don't know what happens, but God has put a nervous system in all of us, I think, that has that opportunity if you get it right with yourself. And now, after these tens of thousands of horses, I don't have to even think about it. I get around a horse and it just happens, and I look back on what I did and I go, oh my God, I could have been killed, But I haven't been injured. I'm knocking on wood now. I haven't been injured through all of this time. I'm now, was 2020, so let's call it 4 years now that I've had this condition. And I've done a lot of horses in those 4 years. Not as many as I did before, obviously, and not traveling to all those countries. But something happens within your system when you get it all right enough so that another individual, human or animal, falls in love with the fact that you're doing something together and building something together. And then you say, wow, look what we did. I don't know how to tell you that, but I do know how to teach it now. And it's the horses that have taught me how to teach it.
Well, that was an interesting thing that you did this week, too. You gave a roadmap. You gave an example by showing the students on Monday afternoon. This started on Monday. Monday afternoon, you worked with these horses in the chutes. You first put them in there. You breathed them into the chute. And goodness, that's a book full right there of how you breathe them into the chute. But then you showed how sending the student in and out, advance and retreat, even before the first touch, and then eventually the first touch and move away. You gave them this roadmap. Then the next morning, you didn't come. You let the students be filmed doing the same thing from their memory of you doing it. And then on Tuesday afternoon, you were critiquing it. So you sat in the classroom with each one, watching their footage and giving that. I've never seen you do that.
No, I know. And the reason I wasn't there in the morning was that I was having an infusion.
Right.
And then I came back. So it's a learning curve for me too, to go through all of this. And God works in mysterious ways. And this is a challenge. You think you have it right, Mr. Roberts. So let's see what you can do if we put this on you and that on you. And the horses have taken charge of my life. And it even makes me get along with people better. And you take violence out of your life, and there's a whole new approach to living. Most people that are successful business people, they will say, well, I can tell those people what to do, and I can be sure that they do it. And they're traditional about their thinking. And oftentimes that goes wrong for them.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here and hear a little bit about Monty Roberts University. And when we come back, we're going to hear a little bit more about how things can go right and how things can go wrong.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm dedicated to training horses without pain. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. Western, English, the beginner or the advanced rider. It doesn't matter. You can connect with other students online too, on our forum, and there's a new lesson every week. It's a lifetime of learning for you on my Equus Online University at montyroberts.com.
I think you're right in that the more, I think as you're maturing through this whole teaching process, because I don't think you set out to become a teacher of horse training, right? You are a horse trainer.
Yeah.
But the teaching of it, I think you're more empathetic with the students out there, the more students you've known and the more you see how the horses respond to students. And I know you want to get it right for the horses, which means you have to get it right for the student so as not to annoy the horses, right? But I thought that was an interesting challenge for you to come up with. You came up with that thought of how to do that.
Yeah, and Debbie, the thing is, you don't make this happen. You wait until you're going to leave it, and then you're a good teacher. When you're still doing it and making champion horses, you tend to push yourself to get that thing done with the horse. Now the excitement is to build a team of people that will carry these nonviolent concepts onward. And then if there is another life and you're sitting up there watching what you left behind, we will leave behind, Debbie, a different world than I was born into. And we will be, and the Queen was the first one to know it, we will be responsible for an earth-changing experience, not just for animals, but human to human as well. And wouldn't the world be better off if we humans weren't thinking about beating one another up and dropping bombs and shooting people and so forth and so on? Violence is never the answer. Violence is always for the violator and never for the victim. Think about it. It's not for the victim. You're making it happen. And they will be thinking about a way to stop you from making it happen. And that's a violent society. And that's what we have on this earth right now. And yet we're trying. And yeah, there's one country that really is critical of me about putting horses in the chute. And they say, oh, I see those horses in the chute. And they look to me like they're in jail for life. It's horrible. And I wish they would tell me what their alternative is to a wild horse. You go in and just start touching them? No, you're going to get your head kicked off. But if you do it my way and you put them in a chute, you can go up and show them that touching doesn't have to hurt. Fighting doesn't have to happen. And how do you do that? How do you get them to go in that chute? You breathe them into the chute. What? Are you nuts? Breathe the horse into the chute. Yep. Horses are incredibly aware of your pulse rate, of your breath rate. They're totally aware. And so I say that one of the most important things that a good horseman learns is diaphragmatic breathing. And when you breathe diaphragmatically, you lower your pulse rate. I play with them at the infusion suite, and they'll say, oh, your pulse rate is up a little bit today. What was it? Well, it was almost 60, 59 or something like that. What? Really? What do you want it to be? Well, sometimes you come in and you're 49 or you're 50 or you're 51, and I say, take it again. And I diaphragmatic breathe, and they say, oh my God, you're 44. It's too low now. So when you breathe down, when you breathe diaphragmatically, the horse relaxes. So when the horse is in the gentling pen and the chute is there on the side, you breathe up. Breathe up. And you take your pulse rate right up 68, 69, 70. And the horse is flying around there. You don't have to run them. You don't have to hit them. They're running around you like crazy. And when they go in the chute, they go in a kind of a little V that heads them into the chute. When they go in there, diaphragmatically breathe down. And they look at you and go, oh. And then, boom, they'll bolt out again. And when they're out, you bring your breath rate back up and take it right up to the top. And when they go back in, down it comes. And you saw it today. I could put those 2 Mustangs in there, breathe high, and they buzz around in there and then dive in that chute, down, and they lock. Mm-hmm. And I can literally do 4 or 5 breaths and change their position in that chute now. And they learn it way faster than humans could learn it. The flight animal learns that kind of thing because the predators breathe that way. And when the predator is breathing up and ready to attack, they are out of there. The ones that do that live. Yeah. And the ones that don't do that feed the predators. Right. So it's a wild change that's happening. And my human doctors in the hospital where I go to have these things, they come in and watch this thing, and they just can't believe it. It bothers them a little because they want to control this whole
you're
situation.
Controlling the situation.
And I'm controlling it. And they don't like it. And professional horsemen don't like it because if they're a traditional horseman, what am I going to do? If this stuff that he's doing works, what am I going to do?
Invalidates what they did.
Invalidates what they did. That's right.
No, it's fun to watch the ability to get a flight animal to trust you because you've got your physiology right. We've been calling horses biofeedback machines, that you can see what your biology is like just by watching the horse's reaction to you. And it must be fun to watch your students now coming back to spend a day or a little time with you to teach, to maybe also fine-tune some of the stuff they're doing. And it must be gratifying to know that these guys are taking it into the future.
Extremely gratifying. Extremely gratifying. And when I go to my own funeral, the greatest thing that will be in my mind as I go out of here is that thousands of people are now learning that violence isn't the answer. Violence is for the violator. And I know I can help the world. I wish the politicians would come to me and say, teach us all how to do this, because humans are important to this earth of ours, and we're becoming more and more populated to the extent that we get more fractious with people, because we have a tendency to be a predator and not to be a flight animal.
We escalate instead of de-escalating, and that's where my grandpa, did with dominating horses, and I'm so glad that you broke that cycle.
Yeah, well, I am too. I just had a phone call conversation from people in my city that just hate me. Absolutely hate. They think my father was the best ever. And so those people have to die off. And youngsters coming up see a better way, if there's a better way out there. And I now know there's a better way out there. So it's fun.
We look forward to the next generation, but we thank you for breaking that cycle and swimming upstream to do it and staying true to your beliefs.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for Queen Elizabeth II, I never could have gone offshore, you know. If I could have done it right here, I'd have been perfectly happy. Mm-hmm. But when the Queen came to me after the first horse I did for her and said, Owen was right, you know. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who Owen was. And I learned later at Sandringham, sitting down with her in a little cottage back in the trees, that she had a guilty conscience because her family fired Owen because he was teaching those children, Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth, nonviolent ways to work with horses. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows you got to do this and you got to do that. So they fired him. And she had a guilty conscience that she let that happen without trying to keep him in the hunt and didn't bring him back in when she became queen. And she just had to stop, see what I was doing. And then and he was gone. He was dead then. Mm. And she said, you have to take this to the world. Mm-hmm. There has to be a book, and you've got to go to every country you can go to, and you have to show this to the world. And if the Queen of England says that kind of thing, it's going to happen way more than some cowboy from California. Mm. I just can't begin to tell you how much I owe that lady for what she's done. And she quietly did it. She doesn't want to take credit for changing. She wanted all the credit to go to me. And she was the moving force mm-hmm. behind my world tour.
Mm-hmm. Well, she enjoyed the horses, didn't she? I mean, I think.
Oh, she loved her horses.
Ultimately, that's what she was doing it for.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's what she was doing it for.
You were a vehicle to move it there.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I'm sure she's very proud of you.
And Terry Pendry, mm-hmm. who first said I had powder in my pockets.
Right.
that I pulled out and blew it up the horse's nose, and then the horse just went tranquil. And she put him on the road with me 30 days. He lives at Windsor Castle as we speak, mm-hmm. and they've made arrangements for him to live out his years with his wife at Windsor Castle because she was so grateful. And he's the one that was holding the little pony at her funeral with her scarf over the pony's neck. Terry Pendry, Corporal Major Terry Pendry. It was fantastic. And I did nothing. I just did my thing. And he watched. He had 30 days with me on the road. And he just watched and made his changes. He was malleable. Mm-hmm. And he physically and mentally could make those changes. So, he's one of the proudest marks that I have. And he was one of the most proud marks that the Queen had. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to him as well, because that he has started a legacy there that broke a mold. And
sure.
And hopefully all the horses, he trained the drum horses and all the horses that the Queen rode.
Carriage horses and the Queen's horses to ride, mm-hmm. the whole royal family. Mm-hmm. And now polo is the single discipline moving to my way of thinking more than any other discipline in the horse industry. And that all happened because of the Queen.
Yes.
And Prince Philip. Who said, let's make it happen. You were there.
The Zeta brothers. Yes. Yeah. So many polo players who recognized a better way, frankly.
The son of the man that first changed, Adolfo Cambiaso is his name. He was number one in the world.
I think it's been fun this week. So tomorrow we have the yes-no game in the morning. We're going to start with that. And then Friday, we're going to have some fun with Shy Boy. Can you believe he's still around with us?
31 years of age.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he's quite a Mustang himself. He's a story in himself.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks for spending so much time with us today.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, what do you say to people who have gone down the wrong path and feel guilt? For example, a horse person who has been using harsher training methods. Monty's answer. I say to tell them to take a bath. Everyone makes mistakes. I have tried it both ways. Don't beat yourself up over it. It's counterproductive. Most people who use traditional harsh methods slide into it through peer influence. If it happens to you, walk away. All you need to do is to make the choice, then stand up in front of the mirror and say, I throw it away. If it happens to someone you know, regard it as a privilege that they have seen the light. If someone comes to you for advice, be understanding rather than accusatory. Remember that it takes a good deal of courage to acknowledge the use of violence. One should regard a request such as this an expression of confidence in one's ability to counsel against the use of violence. I recommend that one takes this responsibility seriously and responds with compassion. I regard it as an honor to assist those who wish to seek a better way. I fully realize that we cannot change the world overnight, but that the people that we help are likely to become spokesmen for violence-free training.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to MontyRoberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page.
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged, in January. Coming right around the corner, we have a Mountain Trail Play Day on January 20. And then on January 27th, we have a Horsemanship 101. February 1, we have a Mountain Trail Play Day again. And then 5 through 9, we have Monty's special training. Now, this one I didn't talk about yet, and I should, because it doesn't happen very often. We often develop a lot of our university lessons out of that, but he gets to play with horses for 5 days straight, and we get to watch. It's a lot of fun. We just support him on that. And then 16 through 18 is a Horse Sense and Healing. That is for our veterans and first responders. The 24th is a Horsemanship 101. That's also a really popular one-day course, too. We call it, Girlfriend's Weekend or Mother-Daughter, Father-Daughter kind of thing. And then March, we have on the 31st, we have an Easter's Mountain Trail Play Day. It happens to fall on Easter. So girls, treat yourself. Don't just stay home and cook. And then April 1st through 16th is our introductory course of horsemanship. And that is our first step to the certification process. So it's super important. And then right after that, we have the 22nd through the 26th are the intro exams after you've completed your intro course and some videos.
There you go. On Easter Mountain Trail Play Day, you should have an Easter egg hunt.
We should. Thank you. Great idea. Hadn't thought. I love that.
And if you want to look at the calendar for yourself or get any other information about what's going on at Flag Is Up Farms, you can go to MontyRoberts.com. It's all there, including this here podcast. It's also on the MontyRoberts.com. It's your one-stop shop. Is really everything is there.
It's there.
And you can be old school. Give them a call over there at Flag Is Up Farms. 1-805-688-6288. And for details about today's show, you can go to MontyRoberts.com or HorsemanshipRadio.com, where you will find links, photos, and more information about today's guests and topics.
Yes.
We love your feedback. Great way to give us feedback and spread the word is on social media. On Facebook, it's Monty Roberts, the one with the little blue check mark. And Twitter and Instagram, both are Monty_Roberts.
Yep. I love Instagram. It's so pretty. And then many thanks to our sponsors, too. That's HandsOnGloves, because we brag on them all the time. And we use them through our gentling course, by the way, because the Mustangs love them. It's a nice way to kind of gentle them, too. So it's HandsOnGloves. MontyRobertsUniversity.com is our reason for being. And be sure to visit all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network, too, at www.horseradionetwork.com. Until next time, have many happy horse hours.